Okay, let's get started. First up, I want to do 621.
Senate Bill 621 requires the Lottery Gaming Commission to identify an independent evaluator to rate and evaluate sports wagering. The evaluators must have certain experience and have an audit process with in-house certified accountants. Evaluators are prohibited from having a relationship with a wagering license. C. The amendments to this bill would authorize rather than require the wagering license to contract with an evaluator. That's amendment. There are two sets of amendments together in your packet for this bill. There are two different sets. The set that is numbered 333224, that set will authorize rather than require sports wagering licensee to contract with an evaluator. The second set of amendments, which is numbered 663523, this will authorize the commission and the Space Wagering Application Review Commission to consider a request to amend the license to alter a location if the facility was awarded before February 15th, 2023. And basically this was a request for an amendment because someone got a license, got feedback that the area where the licensee was supposed to establish the facility wasn't wanted there, and they're trying to use another location. So that's what the Second Amendment does. It would allow a person who's received the license already to change the location for that license.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what had happened was there was a small minority business that was planning on opening up, and they got a lot of pushback from a location where they're going to open up, and they were already out the money for the license, and that was a huge burden on them. So someone asked me if I could if we were going to move this bill, if we could amend it to allow them the flexibility of switching locations instead of basically losing their money. And yeah, Crab Shack, I think it was, or something.
Senator.
Thanks, Chair. So just to be clear, it would be just in this circumstance or any circumstance in which someone's put down the money but wants to change location because they.
Yeah, the language in the bill is specific with dates from February the 15th, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. So it would only cover a licensee during that period.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on this? Senator McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, there were a number of folks that had some concerns with the bill. Would their concerns be addressed? Have we gotten feedback from the folks that came in and testified that their concerns are addressed with this bill in this posture?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
My understanding is there's no opposition with the bill in its current posture once it's amended, and the amended version, there's no opposition.
Okay.
It takes the requirement away, right?
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely. All those in favor as amended? Opposed? Okay. Senator Zucker. Kim, can somebody find out if he is going to come? Senator Zucker is another one of yours, 311. It's my understanding that you're still working on this.
Yep.
Uh,
We've got amendments, but I just need just a little more time just to digest them.
Okay. Along those lines, I know we're still working through Senate Bill 418.
350 we have worked out.
Senator. Senator Alfred, that's correct. Yep, great. We'll hold that for now. Senator King, you think this is really done?
I think it is.
All right, I'm willing to listen. You could let Erica if you want to
Okay,
get started.
we get started, but it looks good to me anyway.
Excellent.
All right, Senate Bill 350. This has to do with the childcare subsidy program. I believe the committee did look at it last week. You have a reprint on your desk. Under these amendments, as you recall, the discussion was about that the bill itself was a mandate by locking in certain benefits that kids currently get under the program due to the availability of federal funds. So what the amendment largely does is strike all of those provisions and instead prohibits MSDE from altering those benefits without first notifying the General Assembly. This is on page 3 of the bill. So those adjustments first have to be notified and identified. The reprint also has that those adjustments cannot be implemented until the legislative session immediately following submission of the notification is done. There is like an escape valve in here about contemplating the potential for mid-year budget cuts under the Board of Public Works. Basically, it says if the Board of Public Works approves budget reductions, then the department may reduce those benefits as necessary. So that is the bill now.
Does everyone understand what's going on here?
The main thing that I wanted to have happen with this is that it, like, say November comes and it looks like we're gonna, the MSDE thinks we need to make a cut, that won't, nothing will happen until after the legislative session, so that we have a chance to look at what he wants to do. Just kind of takes away some of the responsibility with MSDE and puts it back with us so that we have a little bit more control over it.
What about the entitlement part of it?
The entitlement part is struck.
I'm always out there answering your questions for you, Senator Furman. Okay. All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Right.
Just a quick comment. These amendments have already been submitted for review. The reviewer had some kind of reorganization things that she's going to do, but they'll be substantively identical, but the reprint will look a little different.
Okay. 353 were second.
You are. Senate Bill 353, I believe you guys have a reprint on your desk. This has to do with a program that I was created, I think just last year, maybe the year before, having to do with hunger-free campuses for the 2 years and 4-year public institutions in the state. This is out of EEE. The amendments that they did are on page 4. Essentially, as introduced, the bill came in with a mandated appropriation of $1.5 million. The committee downstairs struck that and instead maintains a mandate for $225,000 for the program.
That seems reasonable to me. Is there a
Favorable.
All those in favor? Opposed?
That's 353. 353, yes, ma'am.
353. So Senator King, you can do that one too.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you don't have to do that one.
No, that's right. It goes downstairs.
All right, perfect. Let's look at 699. Also, we're second, the finance.
Yep, this one's out of finance. You have a reprint on your desk. This one has to do with establishing within TEDCO a new program called Equitech Growth Fund and Commission. The bill states the purpose of it, which is to support economic competitiveness and inclusive growth. There are the awards can either be grants, investments, loans, or other financial assistance to public, nonprofit, or private entities, including institutions of higher education and public-private partnerships. Supposed to target workforce development and infrastructure. The amendments on bill page 3 strikes all of the mandates. Instead leaves just a single mandate starting in fiscal 25 through 2023 to include $5 million in the annual budget for that program. There's also a reporting requirement that's on page 4. I should note that they do have to do a competitive application process with criteria, procedures, as well as processes and metrics for monitoring the awards. The second part of the bill establishes a commission, including the membership. A report, basically what they need to do is establish a statewide long-term strategic plan with 10-year goals for growing the state's innovative economy. They need to complete that plan by July 1, 2025. And then submit a report about it. And then that provision about the commission would then sunset after 2 years.
Senator Quarterman,
I wasn't quick enough last time. What was the vote count in the committee, the primary committee?
Yep, finance was 8 were yays, 3 were nays.
Thank you. Joe, who the yeas and nays, or who the nays were?
The nays were Senator Reedy, Motts, and Hershey.
Thank you.
5 million.
So the bill as it came in had kind of a total of $75 million mandates once you get to the out years. So instead of those, it is a mandate for each of fiscal years 2025 through 2033 of $5 million.
Yeah,
How is this different from other such grant programs? It sounds very similar to many grant programs we have on technology and economic development.
Yeah, I don't have an analysis of that in front of me. I mean, it would be grants. A lot of them are, as stated by the Department of Commerce, are tax credits. So this is upfront money as opposed to after the layout. It's also workforce development and infrastructure. I mean, it's a new program, so I don't have details on how it may overlap with other things that TEDCO is running.
Well, we have workforce programs, we have infrastructure programs.
Yep.
We have. Okay, I just don't understand it.
we don't have this one.
Okay.
We don't have this one.
No, I don't, I'm not against it.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe I'll take the risk of, I think with the president's equity and inclusion. I think this is a furtherance of that task force, of that work group. I'd like to amend on as a co-sponsor.
Okay.
That is the.
No, we
finance.
can't do that. Yeah, if we did, we'd slow everything down. It's in
Okay.
finance.
Oh, okay, all right. Good.
I'm just curious, why is this in TEDCO?
TEDCO has to do with, they
I mean,
specialize in like
I
the
know-
very high tech.
I know,
those sorts of things.
But this doesn't seem like it's technology. That's why Did anybody here sit in on the hearing?
There she is. Cindy, do you want to come up and?
I actually. Oh, if you'd like to come up, but I actually sat in on the hearing.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And I have to say, I was just trying to figure out and go back through this to see why my colleagues were opposed to it. I actually, from sitting in on it, I thought it was a pretty inclusive hearing, and it seemed to me like it was a good idea, especially helping a lot of economic areas.
So I totally agree with you, and I know a fair amount about TEDCO, and I'm just sort of baffled about why it's there.
Penny.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I'm Mindy Lehman. I'm the Chief Government Relations Officer for TEDCO. And
Pull the
if I-
mic a little closer to you.
Thank you. And if I could provide just a bit of background on this bill, this is the result of JCR language from 2022 coming down from the Speaker and the President, and they instructed TEDCO to specifically take a look at Maryland's innovation competitiveness, the ecosystem. But within that, they wanted a strong lens on diversity, equity, and inclusion, including the traditional ones, racial, ethnic, gender, but then also geographical was a strong piece of it. So when they looked at agencies across the state and ones that are working very collaboratively with partners, it was their view that TEDCO would be the right vehicle for this. So the JCR language instructed TEDCO to introduce this language. So within that TEDCO umbrella, a lot of these funds would flow through TEDCO as do our current programs. But that strategic plan is critical in identifying where the needs are, specifically as it relates to advanced technology and advanced industries. For example, life sciences could be one of those.
I'm supportive of all of that, and I love TEDCO. I'm just not seeing, am I missing something about life sciences in here? Because I see infrastructure. I guess I'm missing something.
Yeah, so the strengths of Maryland as we know them, for example, is Maryland is really a leader in cyber and life sciences. Those are two areas of strength from our economic economy.
Yep.
However, we also see on the horizon needs to where Maryland could also be a superstar in other areas. So in the legislation, we didn't want it to be limiting in terms of identifying, and that's TEDCO doesn't do that anyhow, identify very sort of rigid sectors. With that, it's more that umbrella of advanced industries and technologies, which was our charge.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to talk more offline if that's helpful.
Okay, we're second on this bill. Senator Zucker.
And my understanding is the chambers of commerce support this, and independent colleges and community colleges. I mean,
Nope, let's move.
Move favorable.
second.
Favorable as amended. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, you. Senator, oh, I didn't see it. Okay. For 2 minutes. It's hard not to. All right. And we don't have to worry about a leader. 580.
Senate Bill 580 is the Community Wellness Training Grant Fund. We as secondary, the budget and tax is secondary on this bill. The bill establishes an officer and community wellness training grant fund. And for FY 2025 and beyond, the governor may include there was an amendment offered in JPR to change that shall to may. Authorizing the governor to include grants to provide mental health, first aid training, and stress management peer support training for officers. The bill requires the executive director of the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention Youth to report to the General Assembly on the number of grants awarded, and outcome-based performance. The bill passed judicial proceedings unanimously.
All those in favor as amended? Aye, opposed? Okay. All right, what I want to do now is that we've got two bills that we voted on at the end of last week that haven't gone to the floor yet. Actually, we've got 14 bills that haven't gone to the floor yet, which will be going today. And then the ones we voted on this morning will also be going in a second wave. But two of the bills from last week that we did, one of which is the Garvey bill. I mean, another amendment to that. And it's just a amendment that would add another delegate and another senator to the Blue Ribbon Commission that we established. So move that. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. And then on the film tax credit, and pull it up because you're going to look at it and you're going to make it on the council that's created there. What we have missed is one of the employee groups. So the amendment, you have that amendment?
The labor union.
The labor union are not represented. A whole lot of people were represented, but they're not represented on there at all. So what's that? We do have to fix that. So all in favor of that? Aye. Opposed? Okay, excellent. All right, let's go to. While you're sitting there with this, the Eastern Shore thing, we have a letter on it. I'm talking to 612.
Yes.
We might. You'd like to talk about that? That's fine. We can hold it. This,
And at the hearing, and I've yet to hear from the sponsor regarding that, and I have a concern with that.
that's fine. This is the Eastern Shore Senators, right?
I'm-
Okay. I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. That's fine. That's
Thank you.
on hold. All right, let's go back to 151.
Again, actually, I have something else to hand out for this one. The reprint on your desk was not what was intended by the sponsor. So what the sponsor intended was to match the House bill. So that is what we are handing out now.
Okay, we know that we'll match the House bill, but what else does it do?
Okay, so this has to do, and you guys passed something very similar to this last year. It has to do with the transit-oriented development. It establishes a grant and revolving loan program. It does state for purposes, because it's a revolving loan program, it's a mandate to make sure that the ending fiscal year balance is maintained at 5 million. So under the House amendments. So what it does is, I'm going to pull out. No, it's discovered that it was the wrong amendment about 10 minutes ago. Okay, so on page 4 of the House bill, you can see that this is an intent statement of the General Assembly, basically making reasonable attempts to include transit-oriented development for development area plans, and to further the purpose of those plans when doing the following things listed here. There's a reporting requirement on page 5. to you all from the Secretary of Transportation about their efforts to increase transit-oriented development throughout the state, including demographic and socioeconomic indicators present in the surrounding areas. In terms of, starting on page 6 is the establishment of the actual special fund for it. And let's see, the purpose is to promote the equitable and inclusive development of transit-oriented developments throughout the state. The fund would consist of money in the state budget, money made available for qualifying uses from other government sources, including federal funds and the Transportation Trust Fund. Ground rents, and any other principal and interest earnings. On the middle of page 7, you can see this is the mandate to maintain a balance of $5 million at the start of the fiscal year. The bottom of page 7 identifies what the department can use the financial assistance to local governments for. Nope. The mandate was reduced from 10 million to 5 million. On page 8, it says that the current smart growth subcabinet needs to establish eligibility requirements and scoring standards for the review of potential grants. On page 9, it identifies what the application needs to include. And then the rest is the top of page 10 just means that interest earned in the fund will stay with the fund as opposed to going to the general fund. And then bottom just kind of redefines what a capital asset means in terms of transit oriented development funds that if the state were to, I forget what the name is, get rid of, sell. A capital asset that some of those proceeds would go into this special fund that's created in the bill.
I heard over the weekend that the House has taken out all the roads money out of the budget. Is that correct? And that they're only focusing on transit?
I don't know what that means. In this bill?
I don't know. I just want to find out if, because I'm fine with transit, but I don't want to just only do transit.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
No, I mean, it doesn't make, yeah, it doesn't make sense, period. But I mean, they took 400 million out of the 500 million and put it into the blueprint. But that has nothing to do with transit and roads.
No.
Matter of fact. Yeah, it doesn't make, I don't know what that means.
All right. I would sure like
I
to
have
find
I have
out.
no knowledge of that whatsoever.
Okay.
Senator Corderman.
Kind of along those same lines, the funding source here for the funds. It said on page 6 that, funding consists of money appropriated in the state budget. And then it talks about federal funding and the Transportation Trust Fund. And I don't know if that's where Senator King was going at, but is the funding coming only from federal funding in the Transportation Trust Fund? Or is there also general funds that could be in there? I'm just trying to figure out what the makeup of the funding is.
Yeah, so all of the above, basically anything listed under this subsection C could,
Because number 1 seems very vague. Money.
that's standard boilerplate.
Right. No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
it is,
Right.
it's generally is interpreted to be
Okay.
general funds.
Okay.
But also federal fund, it can be anything, basically.
So the 5 million mandate, did I hear you say to maintain 5 million in the fund?
Correct.
So it's not an ongoing amount.
Correct. And I believe the intent is because part of this is a revolving loan, to the extent that it becomes an evergreen at $5 million, then the
Right.
need for this would diminish.
Gotcha. Senator Jackson.
I just wanted to briefly speak on behalf of the efforts here. I know for at least a couple of decades, we've been trying in Prince George's with the I'm looking at the sponsors of the bill, with the, large number of, metro stops that we have in the county, and getting the transit oriented development has been a chore for us. I'm certainly in favor of this piece of legislation. It's good to see that the, mandated amount has been dropped to 5 million. I think I understand the legislation. If you're not, if you're inclined, I mean, I'd like to move favorable.
I am inclined, and I'm glad you understand it because you're gonna take it to the floor.
I was trying to wait. I was
both.
hoping not. All right.
Okay, all those in favor as amended? Opposed? Okay, Senator Jackson, congratulations.
I follow your lead, Chairman.
All right, so you like this 766, Senator McCray? Collection of unpaid property taxes, this. Carter, are we good on this?
766.
Are we got a delegation letter?
We did. Favorable. Oh, don't know. There's amendments.
Let's hear what it does.
All right.
Appreciate your enthusiasm now.
So this would be, it's basically a tax sale bill related to Baltimore City. You had previously heard one about vacant and nuisance properties. This would be related to owner occupied residential property. Yeah, at the hearing, the opposition was mainly focused on the fact that the bill applied to residential property and the scope of that. So there was a suggestion to limit it to owner occupied, consistent with other statutory provisions related to Baltimore City tax sales. So the amendments make that limitation. They also strike a provision that would have allowed the mayor to cancel the annual tax sale. Provisions still allow for those properties to be pulled out of the tax sale.
So
It's only Baltimore City, yes.
I'm still missing a little bit, so.
So the current interim process is only for vacant and abandoned nuisance properties. This would create an interim process for owner occupied residential property. And there are provisions related to pulling those properties out of tax sale, involving outreach to assist them to pay their taxes. And then on page 4, on to page 5, initially the bill had a provision that 3 years of attempting to contact the property owner had to pass. That's being stricken, but there's still a requirement on page 8 that there's been no active payment plan for the property for at least the preceding 12 months. So I think the idea is to target properties that there's been outreach to and that there's been no progress resulting from that outreach, and then it allows the city to use the interim process, which would be a faster process and more targeted.
Okay,
Guys, let me comment.
if you'd like to.
The posture that it started in was just taking tax sale away from everybody, and we didn't want that because that's a tool in the toolbox. But we do recognize that owner occupied, we want to make sure that people that have given 30, 40 years of their life historically in that community, that they're protected. And those folks are, but we also wanted the tools in the toolbox to where when they're derelict properties in the neighborhood, we can do MREM or the tax sale as a vehicle. But no favorable.
You're ahead of your time. All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Senator McCray? Yes.
If I could, I wanted to just go back to Senate Bill 151 and HB 112.
150.
Real quick.
Yeah, 151.
I'm going to be a no on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator,
Thank, please. If Kim, could you record it?
Okay, split in the party. Split in the party. Okay, let's go to 773.
All right, here, Rebecca, I have a new set of reprints to pass out.
It's very exciting. Senator Rosapep has worked this out.
Wouldn't go that far. I've tried to understand it.
No, scrap everything. While the reprint's being passed out, 773, this is the procurement liquidated damages bill. Last week when you were all discussing it, there was some discussion about I guess the primary entity for creating the model liquidated damages policies, whether that should be the board or the primary procurement units. So the reprint that's coming around right now has two pieces to it. There are the B&T amendments that were discussed last week regarding the primary procurement units and the board taking the primary role in this. And then about 15 minutes ago, I just got additional amendments from the sponsor, which is the back half of the bill. And basically those you'll see, and start with that on page 7 and 8. It's striking the provisions about going to BPW for approval to not use liquidated damages and then not pursue liquidated damages. And instead on page 8, it would substitute a requirement that units maintain documentation when they decide not to include liquidated damages. And then also when they decide not to pursue liquidated damages, they need to maintain documentation for the reasons for that, as well as who approved that decision. And then the B&T discussion amendments you'll find on page 5 and 8. So on page 5, slight change. So instead of the board creating the model policies, each primary procurement unit shall develop and submit to the board for approval their model policy. And then the board shall review that and approve the model policies for publication by each primary procurement unit. And then on page 6, some conforming changes just related to that change. And then also another conforming change that the board or the primary procurement unit may consult with the Procurement Improvement Council when developing the model policies. So in totality, primary procurement units will develop model policies, submit to the BPW for approval, and then the decision whether to include or not will remain with the procuring unit, and the decision whether or not to pursue or not will remain with the procuring unit, but documentation needs to be maintained on those decisions.
Good. Got it?
I do, but I have a question, actually.
Please do.
In the absence of the sponsors amendments, how would that have worked for you? There was a waiver provision, right? This switches it from a waiver provision to not a waiver provision, but you just have to document why you did it. Is that the essence of it?
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, after our discussion about it, I talked with the sponsor at some length about it. And I actually think the way the bill came in, having the BPW doing the model policy makes the most sense. Get input from the procurement agencies, but they're the overall state folks in charge of this. And the fact that they're not the ones doing the actual procurements, I actually think is good from the point of view of having a little bit of independence from that process. So my inclination would be to stick with the bill as it was introduced, having BPW develop the policy. And then I think the sponsors amendments are fine in the sense of there was concern about the delay in going to the Board of Public Works and that's it. So what I would do is I would take the bill as it came in with the sponsors amendments and not with the B&T amendments.
Okay. Thoughts?
Well, just to clarify, so the amendments before you would have the primary procurement units develop and then submit to
I know.
BPW. Okay.
I know, I think it's backwards. I mean, now that I've thought about it, I think it ought to come from the top down with input from the bottom, as opposed to the bottom up. Because they're the broad policy. That's why you have a Board of Public Works.
Thoughts?
Move favorable as amended.
On what?
as the vice chairs
Yes.
suggested. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, then that would just be the sponsor amendment submitted by Senator Lamb.
Yep. Okay. All those in favor of that amendment? Opposed? Okay. Then on the bill as amended, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, Senator Roosevelt, you just won yourself a bill.
Okay.
It's more than okay. Senator. It's just perfect. Huh?
We do read before we leave.
I hope so. All right, let's give it a shot. 968.
Senate Bill 968 alters the definition of captive breed for purposes of Maryland income tax modification. The bill excludes from the definition of a captive breed an entity organized as a trust owned or controlled by an Australian property trust, whether indirectly or directly. At the bill hearing, there was a discussion about this in depth. The General Assembly passed legislation in 2007 to close a loophole that corporations were using for tax avoidance on commercial real estate. This occurred before model language had been developed by the Multi-State Taxation Commission. And the language of this bill mirrors the language that the Multi-State Tax Commission adopted.
968, it's not on the sheet.
Chairman,
Yes.
I have a note here we got from Andy Schaffel. And it says, talking about the fiscal note. And he says the fiscal note would be approximately 500,000, but he said, again, that is a maximum. And we cannot make further accurate decisions without exact knowledge of the foreign REITs.
Senator Corrigan?
So the 500,000, I guess it goes into the point where it was indeterminate before. That's a decrease to the general fund, higher education transfer fund, or an increase? And I guess the whole thing of these REITs, are they paying more or they're paying less? That's the part I'm kind of confused on.
I think so, but.
Says decrease in the fiscal note.
Fiscal summary, yeah.
And the fiscal summary says that there is a decrease in revenues and expenditures to the Transportation Trust Fund may decrease.
So it's saying decrease and Andy's saying the numbers like $500,000, which sounds like $500,000 decrease.
Is there a cross on this?
No,
I don't think so. No.
All right, my inclination is to tighten this up before, I think we have another shot at getting it on, so.
Okay.
Let's see what we can do to tighten that up. Our info on that. 874. I heard you there. Are you interested in your bill?
So Senate Bill 874 codifies the Community Health and Safety Works grant program and establishes a related fund within DHCD. The program provides financial assistance in the form of grants to improve quality of life within and economic potential of Maryland communities by making targeted investments in crime prevention strategies. There should be an amendment document at your desk. The amendment would strike the mandated provision consistent with other actions budget and tax has taken on mandates so far this session, and then alters the language from memorandum of understanding to partnership. So instead of having to have that formalized process with law enforcement agencies, is the community partnership. So those are the
mandate.
no mandate. The program has
How
been
much?
getting I think according to fiscal note 10 million a year in the budget. So the codifies the program, and then the governor would determine the funding in the budget. But it has been getting 10 million a year since it's been in effect.
All it really does is codify an existing program with no mandate.
Correct.
Move favorable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
As amended.
Opposed? As amended, yeah. Okay. Senator Bailey. You love that bill, right? Oh. This is not. No, I never. You're done. Done. Mm,
695.
what?
695.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, all right, 690.
That's fine. Senate Bill 695. This is a bill that came out of the Pension Subcommittee. The bill would alter the provisions related to military service credit to allow service at one of the service academies to be counted. It's like Naval Academy, West Point, et cetera. There was one technical amendment, just clarifying the provisions related to that service credit for when that military service interrupts a member's employment.
All those in favor? Okay, Senator Jackson. Okay. Who wants to be a co-sponsor? Right, yeah, we all have to.
So all B&T.
Anybody opposed to being a co-sponsor? You guys crack me up. All right, Senator 907, what do we got? Hey, Nancy. Yes, Joe Nancy, with her, keep in between. Okay. Which one? Yeah. Yeah. I think it's all right, but 907.
Senate Bill 907 establishes the Entertainment and Film Funding Grant Program. There is an amendment that Senator Stallings offered to change the shall to may, thus authorizing rather than mandating the funding in this bill.
Which was how much?
$5 million.
Okay.
The goal of the legislation is to provide grants to qualified production entities to assist them with the startup costs of an entertainment or film project in the state.
So how is this different from the other bill we have?
This is a grant program. The other bill, Senate Bill 452, is a tax credit program.
Okay. All those in favor, as amended? Aye, okay. Stalling? Yeah, let's put Jennings on it. All right, I think that is all we're doing for now. Which was a lot. Oh. What's this one on 782?
Uh, 782 as introduced would have provided purchasing preferences for certain aggregates, soil, compost, etc. There are, well, there's not amendments. There is a House Bill 586, the cross file on your desk, third reader version. The House had amended it to strike the pricing preference, as well as added some language at the end of the bill requiring the Green Purchasing Committee to establish specifications for purchasing of compost, mulch, and other soil amendments, and to publish and maintain those for use by state agencies.
If it strikes the pricing preferences, what does it do?
So it requires each unit of government to include in its procurement specifications for compost, mulch, or other soil amendments. Requirements for that if they're competitively priced and readily available.
So just, it basically tells them just to think about it.
You don't have to do it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and then the Green Purchasing Committee will have published documents about those specifications.
Okay. As amended. All those opposed? Okay. How many you have a happy smile about this bill? Congratulations, you just won yourself the bill. All right, now we're done. Now.